Welcome, everybody, back to the next episode of my Metabolic Life podcast. And today I have a great special guest by the name of Natalie Shamp. And Natalie and I have gotten to know each other over the last couple of weeks as an organization and movement that we are both involved in has gotten rolling, which is called the Metabolic Revolution. Pretty much everybody inside of this metabolic revolution, and then my last two guests were also from the metabolic revolution. The reason why we all believe this is as important as it is and why we get involved in this is we realize how much metabolic health is misunderstood in the mainstream medicine world and how revolutionary it is once you get your brain around what can happen just by simply almost going back to how our great grandparents ate 100 years ago. It really is as simple as that. But it's so profound, and there's so many things going on in the world. And we'll talk about some of that at the end. But Natalie has a great number of things as a part of her journey and story that she's uncovered in her metabolic health journey of the last 2 or so years. And Natalie, take it away. Please introduce yourself. Tell us about your past. Tell us about some of the challenges and tell us how you've resolved them.
Okay. Hi, Brett. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor. I appreciate it. I'll just start out with the simple, I spent much of my life suffering from chronic digestive issues. I was told I had hypoglycemia. I had terrible allergies. I had skin issues. And the older I get, some more fun things came into the picture, like joint pain. And slowly I started gaining weight all through that, probably my 40s. But by the time I was in my 50s, I was a good 35 pounds overweight. And I would go to the doctor and I would ask for help. Like, what should I do? My stomach hurts, et cetera. And I was just told it was part of aging. And I just thought, oh my God, if this is my 50s, what in the world am I up for in my 60s? I can't even imagine how bad that's going to feel. And so one day, I was just listening to podcasts and I ran across this guy named Vinnie Tortorich, and he's the founder of No Sugar, No Grains. And I was listening to him and he was explaining the way we eat, the standard American diet, the way we're taught to eat. And then he talked about what we should be eating. And for that hour and 28 minutes, I get choked up. I literally thought he was talking to me.
Yeah.
I thought he was on the phone with me saying, girl, get it together. You can do this. And so I thought to myself, whoop, that was unexpected. I thought to myself, you know what? I have tried everything else. I've tried some crazy diets, if you will, and nothing's ever worked. So what do we have to lose? Let's give this a go. And so I did. And that day, life clicked for me. I had no idea. And so I started getting rid of sugar and grains and processed foods. That was not easy. It wasn't a pretty start. I would play with it a little bit and I'm like, oh, I'll just have some popcorn on the weekends. It's no big deal. And then I realized I wasn't doing myself any favors because honestly, I didn't feel good after, I ate those kind of things. And so one day I was like, listen, let's get serious about this. And I committed to no sugar, no grains for 30 days. And I knew if I committed that I would see some changes because it seemed like other people were seeing changes and I wanted to be that person too. So I did. And I would say the first week, I'm going to say 4 days. I remember eating like a steak and broccoli, let's just say. And I want to tell you, I think it was the first time in my entire life that after a meal, I didn't say, oh my God, I'm so bloated. It was the first time that I ate food and I felt like a normal human. I didn't have all of these feelings afterwards. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm onto something. And within that 30 days, my joint pain was gone. I could move my thumbs again. It was, they were really tight and just so uncomfortable. My stomach stopped bothering me. I was going to the bathroom like what I heard normal people do. I never had experienced that. And excuse me one second. And then I realized my sleep was I was zonking out like just dead wood and waking up, and I kind of wanted to go for a run when I would wake up. I just was like, where is this energy coming from? And so the fatigue settled, it took a long time for the chronic fatigue part to dissipate. I had to work on some other things also. But I in less than 2 years, all of those things that I just told you about in the beginning, they're gone. I don't have any skin issues anymore. I don't have psoriasis on my head and on the back of when I work out and, I break out. I don't have any of that anymore. I have no more joint pain. I don't suffer from sciatic nerve pain anymore like I did for a million years. And so the inflammation in my body obviously started, to calm down. And I don't have to take allergy medication. And God, I could probably go on and on. Um, and and then some of the things that I didn't expect were was or are the fact that my mind has become more calm. I explain myself as having a high energy brain. There's always something going on up there, you know. But to feel emotions now that seem logical and don't feel like they're on a hamster wheel, constantly going around and around and around, making my stomach hurt. I just felt like it was weird that I didn't know that was even happening to me. I thought that's just who I was. Right. And so that has calmed. I still, can get upset about things, but I'm not as quick to anger. I feel like I process more so than reacting. And as I listen to others, some in our group that talk about their mental illness and their bipolar and all of those things, I so identify with them. And I didn't even know that I identified with them. And the way it's very courageous to me, the steps they've taken to become a better person because they want to be good fathers and good mothers and good people. And I just want to say, me too. I identify with you. I had no idea. And when you have emotions that are, I don't know, untamed, I don't know what you call them. It really does lead to anxiety. And then the overthinking leads to depression and everything. It just balls up and it just doesn't make you, it just makes you feel a little cuckoo. Right.
Yeah.
And so I have been able to, I had no idea, like I said, that is something that was just unexpected. And I am so very thankful for all of these things. And I've tried to live, when I found Vinny and I started with no sugar, no grains, I was like, listen, your health is number one. Weight loss, that's a bonus. That's going to come with it because you're fixing yourself. It took a really, really long time to become unhealthy. I didn't do myself any favors. I'm a retired flight attendant. We, we don't sleep good. We don't eat good. We drink. You're always having a glass of wine with your dinner at a hotel or whatever the case may be. It can be a very unhealthy lifestyle. So I didn't do my body any favors. So I'm giving myself grace. Things aren't perfect, but I am so excited to see what's going to happen in the next 5 years because I've not even completed 2 years of this. And I've already, I feel like I feel like I'm living my life now, and I'm not looking out the window watching other people live their life. Like I have the energy, the will, the I don't know, the feelings and everything that make me want to get up and be active. And I don't have to think about going for a walk with my dogs. I just do it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And I don't have to go, oh, I have to go for a walk today. I get to go to yoga today. I get to swim laps today because my body wants to and my mind wants to. And I'm thrilled that I found this. I'm thrilled when I found this that it was the right time for me to listen, because I do understand that we can talk to people until we're blue in the face and they're just like, So anyway, I'm going to go get some ice cream, you know, and yeah, I'm just so very thankful for it all. And I just feel like I can talk to anybody for hours about, and then this, and guess what? I didn't have to wear sunscreen this year at all. I didn't even sunburn. Like, it's the weirdest little things that are just, when you tell people, they're like, sure. But I feel like, what do you have to lose, kind of, I mean, especially when you can't move your thumbs, when you can't, go poop, I mean, just the regular things in life that we should all do. I just think, what do you have to lose? If you try it for 30 days and you don't like it, well, then it's fine. But I didn't know also, let me just say, I was never an overweight person my whole life. Not until I was probably in my 40s did I start gaining a little here and there, but I still wasn't, obese, if you will. So that can be deceiving to the person who is not overweight and to others, because I didn't know how metabolically broken I really was from the inside out. And I'm still healing, and I'm still working on it. And I'm still finding like, hey, that food works for me. Not so much that one. And it might be the first time also in my life that my brain and my body are as one, knowing how food makes me feel. And I don't think that people go through life like that. They go through life just going, yeah, and we're just going to have Doritos because it's football time or whatever, and you don't spend a lot of time realizing that, that didn't make me feel very good. You just move about your day because that's how you eat.
It just becomes how we become conditioned and we're used to. It just becomes the norm.
Yeah, agreed. So that's a little bit of my story. That's as much as I've kind of figured out now. Some little things, I've suffered, like my whole life, I've always had, my eyes have always bothered me. I know when I'm getting sick because my eyes will tell me. Like, my eyes are like everything to me. And dry eyes and just the constant allergy goo, I guess. I don't have that anymore. And I haven't been sick in almost 2 years. I'm not saying I can't get sick. I just know that my immune system is doing something right,
Absolutely. Well, the two biggest killers of your gut microbiome and the immune system that exists within it are alcohol and sugar. And guess what season we're coming into? We're coming into the candy season, followed by the pie season, and the bread and cookie, and every other kind of baked good season, with alcohol sprinkled through all of it. So that's why it is the cold and flu season, because you knock out your immune system so badly.
It's so true.
Not to mention football seasons here. So now we have to all on, and this is something that I wound up doing away with, which is why some people are like, who are you? I don't even know you or recognize you anymore, because you used to watch every Badger and Packer game. And now I know they're playing. I have a fantasy football team and I'm in 2 leagues. I spend 30 seconds before the draft looking at it. I don't even watch the games. I can't even tell you if I win or lose 2 days after the week's done, just because it's irrelevant to me. But where I'm going with that is just that other things are important to me. And I'm not just locked into, I now have to sit on the couch and eat all this crap that I used to, or have a drink, or do the different things that I used to do.
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Mhm.
So it's incredible what having energy and wanting to go do things and enjoy life instead of dreading tomorrow's coming, instead of waiting out. I don't want to go to sleep because tomorrow's going to get here that much sooner. And now I'm like, oh, I'll go to bed because I'm happy for tomorrow to get
Oh,
here, you know?
yeah. I'm so excited to go to bed because I know I'm going to sleep well, usually. I mean, we have our nights, but I wake up and I'm like, let's go. I roll into my shoes and my dogs and I go straight for a walk. And another thing I would like to say this reminded me of us talking about things. I'm putting on muscle. I tried for years and years and years to put on muscle. Every time I would go and weight lift, I would just gain weight. I wouldn't gain any muscle. And it was so frustrating. And now I'm like, oh my God, I have some shoulders, and it's not perfect. I don't know that I'll ever look, like a bikini model or something, but I just am so excited that I look strong, right? I look and I feel strong, but I'm starting to see some differences in the way my body's changing.
That's one of the things for people. Now, you said you eventually had 35 on you that I'm assuming is now gone, right?
I lost 35 pounds and some. And by the way, even when I would lose weight, I'm 15 pounds less than that. I've never been able to, probably since my 40s, I've never been able to get under like 135 pounds. I just couldn't do it. I don't know. It would just, my body was like, no, I'm good. And I'm now like 123,
How tall are you?
5'3".
Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful.
So I'm like
That's
10 pounds away from my high school weight, 10 or 15 pounds. And I'm like, nah. I look at
but
the scale and I think it's lying, but I can't. And I didn't try. Like this was not, I didn't starve. I didn't white knuckle anything. I ate the proper food. And all of this just happened naturally.
well,
And
something you just mentioned with both the muscle. And yes, you're now getting adequate amount of protein in your diet, maybe for the first time in decades, because it's consistent and it's conscious. But
yeah,
what comes with all of those things? Whereas when people who, like myself, I dropped 115 pounds, I was big, and and thus I was also a little bit more very much caring about trying to lose all of that weight. And if the scale doesn't move for a day or two, but things that happen through all of this, as you pay more attention, you understand all of the protein synthesis happening in the body, which also comes with more tendons and more bone density, because as you're lifting those weights, you're actually building stronger bones. But there are times also as the body's healing and the body's growing, because you've got protein synthesis happening. The scale might just stop going like this consistently because you just put more muscle and connective tissue and have a little bit stronger bone than you had 3 months ago. And so that weight loss that initially started coming off, you start reconstructing the body and you have a whole different body that you can still feel it all different in the clothes, even though the scale for a while will
right,
stay the same.
right, right. And it took me a lot, like, I didn't just drop 35 pounds like a guy can do. I feel like they lose weight a little bit easier. It's taken me, probably 15 months to lose 35. I was a slow loser, which told me in my learnings, I feel like that, there's just a lot of healing that your body needs to do. And I feel like I would say the first 6 months or so, I was like, come on, scale. I had some anxiety about it. But then I realized that this doesn't matter. This does not matter. How do you feel? And that's where I had to stop and think, let's focus on how do you feel? And no one cares about the scale but me, right?
Well, absolutely. And it's one of the things that I had to learn personally for myself, and that I try to put in front of my coaching clients as I'm working with people is, yes, will you lose weight? Probably. Might you lose more later than you do initially? Maybe, probably. And one of the reasons for that is, well, one, as you start getting all that amount of protein that you're supposed to be getting, because we're returning over millions of cells and repairing cells, and there's need for protein at every moment in our life. And it gets more the older we get, so that we don't wind up becoming one of these frail sarcopenic individuals that are elderly.
Yeah.
Yes. And but with that, what this is really, one of the cornerstones of all of this is, and this is where education comes in, this is about a physiologic state of being. Ketosis, and thus the word keto, there are no keto foods. So if you're seeing something in a store stamped keto or low carb on it, guess what? You're probably being marketed a bunch of crap. Because the processed food companies that are losing revenue from people like us that used to keep them going and growing, they're realizing market share, the breakfast cereals, I'm never coming back. Okay. Right. But they're going to find ways to try to market things that, for people who are just early on and not really aware with all of this, they're going to fall for, well, I'm eating something keto. No, keto is a physiologic state. And people can do this across the whole spectrum of, if we say, we only have this much screen right now, but if we go over here, you can be vegetarian and pretty much even vegan and still pull this off. It's possible. It's harder just because carb amounts dictate ketosis. But then on the other side of things, you can be on, which has become much more common since I started this 6 years ago, the carnivore aspect of things. And then kind of in the middle is more of just kind of at about the 50 to 30 to 20 carb a day level, which most people, that scares them at first, until they start looking. Like on my website, I've got a blog, and the blog is there for a couple of different reasons, but it's a testimonial of, well, the blog says, if you can count to 20, you can have the health and body of your youth. And all that simply means is Dr. Westman, who was, again, with us in Washington, D.C. a week and a half ago, and I got to finally meet him and shake his hand and have conversation, because he was huge early on in my journey, but he introduced me to the term medical strength ketosis. So you can be low carb, which is kind of anything from the 125 carb down to the 50 carb world, but you're not going to really see a lot of ketosis. And I'll just quick say, ketosis is our native state that humans have lived in for 99.9% of our existence on this planet. We never had enough foods that would knock us out of ketosis, because we lived near or on farms for most of our existence, or we were hunter-gatherers. We lived through ice ages where a lot of the planet, we were fishing and hunting and trying to stay warm around fires. We weren't, plowing, and didn't have John Deere's and all of these things. But the thing is that ketosis is a healing state. So this is where I was going with your statement. Mm-hmm. Everything about this is, which is why you were just able to rattle off like 8, 9, 10 things that changed in you in months. Because you stopped adding the poison, which also comes in the form of processed carbs. So the carbs of broccoli, the carbs of Brussels sprouts, the carbs of asparagus, they're not going to mess with you. And I could keep those. So when people go look at that blog post of mine, on the bottom, there's 12 pictures put together as a collage of what would be 12 of my typical meals that I ate. And so here's steak and broccoli. Here's surf and turf. So I made a fish fry in the air fryer where I used pork rinds and pulverized it into breadcrumbs. Put the fish first in a little butter on both sides, pat it down in the breadcrumbs, set it in the air fryer, and have steak with it, or have 6 scrambled eggs with mushrooms and sauteed onions in them, or make an omelet, an egg and cheese omelet.
Yeah.
And I tell people I bageled and sandwiched my way to all of this, because my 3 bread replacements were, I found these rolls, which if anybody wants them, they're in Stuff I Share, but it's psyllium husk fiber, which is the main 99% ingredient plus flavoring of Metamucil. So it's fiber. And not super soluble, so it's going to pass through you, so there's not real carb to it. But these rolls that I formed into like brat buns or hamburger buns, hot dog buns, 2 carbs a roll. So if I have 2 hamburgers or 2 brats on rolls with mustard, I just stayed away from ketchup unless I got a really good low carb, because most ketchup is just sugar.
Just sugar, right.
But I was able to navigate a lot of that. And so the other 2 things is I made bagels instead of the Panera bagel, which are about 80 carbs a bagel. My bagels were 4 carbs a bagel, and they tasted just like regular bagels.
Yeah, you find ways.
And then the last thing was I made a chaffle, which on a Belgium waffle iron, it looks like and tastes like a waffle. And I used it as like a submarine sandwich or a hoagie kind of a sandwich thing. And I found this recipe for a Reuben slaw. Tastes like a Reuben sandwich, but it's got like a coleslaw thing to it, pastrami, corned beef, pickles, all these incredible things that you would get in a Reuben. And on this big waffle, and it's just like
delicious.
So what did it catch you off guard when you realized just how satiating eating this way was? And did your hunger disappear?
Oh my gosh. I immediately could only eat 2 meals a day. I would say in the first maybe 2 weeks or so, I would have some eggs in the morning, and then maybe, I don't know, a half a steak or like whatever I had for lunch. And then I quickly realized I don't need one of these meals. And so I really would just have a steak at night with vegetables. And I was a little different. I didn't try to replace any food that I thought I was missing, because I didn't want to crave that food. Does that make, I tried really hard to just eat. And but the sugar withdrawal, the need for sugar was real. And that was a little harder to get rid of. I depended very heavily on real butter and pickle juice without sugar. Of course, I learned to read all ingredients. FYI, your table salt has sugar in it, and who knew?
The Morton stuff. If you don't buy the good salt, and you're killing and you're removing the ability to have real minerals in your body, that real salt, like a good real salt is the name of a great mineralized brand, or Intact Minerals, Pink Himalayan. There's a lot of great salts out there that people can go and investigate.
But I would have never looked at my salt before until Vinny was teaching everybody how to read labels, and I learned that natural flavors is the hidden word for there is sugar in it. And then also who knows? Yes. And then who knows what else, right? That means it's kind of other duties is required. It's all in natural flavors.
So let me make it quick. Let me play off of that before I forget it. And I want you to then go where you were. I just learned this weekend, another doctor who was on the stage with us in Washington, D.C. at the Metabolic Revolution, metabolicrevolution.org. Everybody go check it out. Is Dr. Tro Kalayjian. And he is amazing. And so I've been following him for 6 years, and Dr. Brian that does, Lensick, that they do the Low Carb Doc podcast together. He had been a huge supporter of Element, and I love Rob Wolf, and I've got a book from him, right here, Sacred Cow, all about regenerative agriculture. And he's the creator of this. And when you just said artificial flavors,
natural flavors,
hiding 400 whatever it was of maltodextrose in it. And they first tried saying, well, there's only 40 in this for sweetness. And once Tro realized that, he has a video of him throwing the Element out and going and finding a different mineral supplement and electrolyte supplement that could take the place or rival it, because he's like, we're all about understanding what's going in our body and
Right.
transparency. And they were hiding this from us from that. Now, hopefully they'll come clean and they'll come out with versions reduced of that, because I've learned a good number of things from Rob through the years. And I've always recommended Element to people, but I
Yeah,
don't have like an affiliate deal or anything. And now I just do kind of Soleil water. Are you familiar with Soleil
I
water?
am. Uh-huh.
So I
Hmm.
start my mornings with that because I kicked coffee this last summer as
I
well.
remember you saying that. Lord bless you. I don't know. That one is going to be a tough one if I ever have to get rid of that one.
Well, because I've used it pretty much since I got out of college, and I'm 61 years old, so that's been 40 years. But I could take it or leave it. I like the taste of it and everything, but I wound up doing my own, where you said you didn't go to the rolls and these bagel things. I did that very early on, just as I was transitioning, and I've
Right.
made them through times, especially if I'm going to have people over. I want to keep it as normal for the people who aren't doing what I'm doing
Okay.
as possible. But I've really moved much more into what, from that ketovore into what I really call nutrivore. I've just really, since kind of 4 or 5 months into this in 2019, I merely focus on the most nutriently dense foods that I can eat, which, when you really spreadsheet it all out and you look at what's going on, what we are told, kale and spinach and these things are supposed to be superfoods. And you look at how they don't, they look like the weak stepsister of Cinderella, in the ball with the glass slipper on. I mean, you just cannot compare, any form of meat, fish, or egg with what people are saying there are the healthiest plant and green things to eat in the world. And not saying you
Yeah.
can't have those things. That's not
Right.
what I'm saying. Because again, in my coaching philosophy, I'm like, you got to meet the person where they're at, and to help them reverse everything and start down the path by sandwiching and bageling it. And if that helps them start, and then through
Yeah.
education, they wind up going more nutrivore
Yes.
through time,
Yeah.
but they don't have to.
No, you're right. And for my grandkids, and when we have people over, I will make the chaffles, and I'll try to do some other things, and the carnivore pizzas, and they're fun. It's okay. And you know what? I will eat them. It's
Oh,
fine.
sure.
Um, but in the beginning, I was afraid, right? I was like, I'm not going to get thrown off track. You can't make me. And I was, uh, almost a little, like, probably too strict, but I had to do that for myself because, we don't know that sugar, we're addicted to sugar. All of us. We don't even, when I tell people, sometimes they'll say, what do you do? And I'll say, well, I've gotten rid of this and that. Oh, well, I don't even crave sugar. And I'll be like, oh, well, what did you have for breakfast? Oh, I had oatmeal with bananas. And I'm like, that's a lot of sugar,
You
right?
just
But
had
you
two
don't think,
Coca-Colas worth of sugar in that
yes,
bowl of banana.
yeah. And, it's not because we don't know. These are the things we're told. This is how you get rid of diabetes. Eat oatmeal and put some bananas and raisins on it, and it just couldn't be further from the truth, which is why I I I love all of the books. I listen to all of Ken Berry, Anthony Shafee, Dr. Troz is he's one of my favorites. Dr. Brian Linskis. I was fortunate enough to be a patient of his to work out some of my fatigue issues. I absolutely adore every single one of those people. And I also give thanks to them because with their content that they're putting out there for free, it's also, changed my life. I didn't start out to be a carnivore. I didn't start out to, um, I don't know. I didn't start out to be a weirdo with how I eat, people think. I started out to get healthy. And with that, I found out that I don't need broccoli. It's my choice. You can eat broccoli. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't think. But also, I just didn't feel any better with it. And I didn't feel any worse without it or with it. So I just thought, well, why? And so I really morphed in. It just for me, a natural transition to morph more towards the carnivore, if you will, if we want to put a label on it. I don't know that, I don't know why we have to, but that's what we say. And the more fat, the more beef fat or fat in general, whether it pork belly or whatever, the fuller, the faster I become full. And like you said, back to your point of being satiated, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know what's satiated. What's that mean? It's like, oh, you mean you don't have to eat 6 meals a day? You know, and then you start thinking, why do I have a 3-hour car ride and I have to have a snack? Like, that's just a little crazy, right? And if I remember when I was a kid, we would leave the house, and I'm 56 now. I started this journey when I was just 53 and getting ready to turn 54. And I'm now 56, and I don't remember needing a snack when I was a kid. I don't even think we ate lunch half the time because we were riding our bikes and, trying not to get called into the house, see how late we could stay out when the street lights went off or on, because we were playing kick the can or something. We were busy. We didn't have time for all this snacks and whatnots,
Well, but and I'm even older, but it was around because I think back, and
Yeah.
I got very early on in kind of late elementary, junior high. I got introduced to the Carnation instant breakfast drink where
Oh,
you just powder in milk, and
yeah,
you could drink it in 2 seconds, and
that's true.
you hit the kitchen 2 seconds with your Flintstone chewables. You're out the door
Yes.
on your way to school. We
Yeah.
had Tang, we had Country Time lemonade. I had the orange and the grape
Yes.
Tang, and
Yes.
and we had Pop Tarts, and we had every sugared breakfast cereal that existed under the sun.
But I
Um,
don't remember thinking that it had a hold on me then.
but we
Like,
didn't have as much of snacks like you were saying.
yeah,
We right now the young kids who are out on the soccer fields, I'm talking like the 8, 9, 10 year olds. When there's a timeout, some moms got to bring candy and fruit and snacks so that we can make it till through the 2 half times.
yeah. The
And
45-minute game. Yeah.
you know, but I played tennis tournaments as a youth, and play for 3, 4, or 5 hours out in the 85, 90 degree with water, and nothing. But it's crazy what we've been able to be normalized with. A lot of it's the advertising that comes at us, and yeah, I mean, I remember. And I'm sure you remember too, if you ever went with mom and dad to the grocery store as a kid, how much smaller they were back
Yeah.
in the day, because there just wasn't as much processed crap to sell you.
Yeah.
And it's crazy for me because I just go to 2 different parts of the store, and I never walk all the aisles because I never buy anything in them anyhow.
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. And I worry about my grandkids. I have 2 grandbabies, and I just get, I watch what they're eating, and you can't unlearn what you've learned now. And so when I watch them, you know, eat the food, I can't, it's none of my business. I have had to also learn that in 2 years. The way people eat is none of my business. As much as I want to help them and tell them, let me help you, it can be really easy, and it's none of my business, and I have to stay in my lane. And I've gotten better about that. Although I want to shout it from the rooftops, because seriously, I want everyone to feel this good. And they just don't know what they're missing. And it makes me sad, but also, you could have told me 4 years ago all of this stuff, and I would have just rolled my eyes and then went about my wine tasting or whatever I was going to do that day or weekend. I get it. And so it just makes me sad that we have to get sick before we want to get better.
Or all the things that we don't even know that we're sick with because
Yes.
we're just told this is part of aging. Well, Natalie, you're in your 50s. You
I
know,
know.
you're supposed to feel like crap. And
Yeah. I'm like,
now
what?
you're like feeling like you're what? How old would you say this is how good you feel if you had to put an age on it again?
I feel like I've always had high energy, but I feel like I'm back in my 30s. Easy, easy. When I go to yoga and Pilates, I, I'm out. I'm out doing. I mean, I'm not perfect at it. Don't get me wrong. But I'm like doing the thing, and the 20-year-old next to me is like laying on the mat, going, "Oh my god," you know. Um, and so I feel like I'm in my 30s. I don't, and um, this is the way I plan to live the rest of my life. We all mess up. We all eat the cake at some point. We all, but I really hope that I remember how good this feels and how, and I don't plan to go back to the other way. Um, I just, again, I feel, um, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I'll ever go to the doctor again for my health. If right, like I
Well,
don't mean that in a way. I mean, if I have a broken arm, if I have trauma, of course, my doctor will be amazing. But when I have digestion, all the things, digestion issues or brain fog. I don't think I mentioned the brain fog. I didn't even know I was so like, whoa. Um, and now, I mean, that is still improving. I just am amazed at, I didn't know that that was even happening. I mean, um, I just didn't know. And so the last time I went to the doctor, he told me, my network doctor, I'll be clear on that. He told me that I have fatigue because I need carbs. And I said, okay, fair enough. What kind of carbs would you recommend that I, start eating? And he said, well, I would like you to start having some bread and pasta in your day. And I said, okay, so I eat very clean. And now you want me to add processed food in there? I'm just checking. And he was like, well, you need the energy. And he basically walked out of the room. And I thought, okay, um, I understand he's busy. I get it. But if I was somebody who didn't know any of this stuff, I would have done that. I would have added bread and pasta to my daily activities or my daily food because I need the energy. And the fact of the matter is that I have more energy without that kind of food.
well, we've been conditioned our whole lives. We think back to when we're young and how much our parents and grandparents used to kind of like idol worship the doctors. And my
Yeah.
grandma, who was smoking Salem menthols, well, I need that menthol. It's good for my lungs.
Right.
What they were conditioned, and their doctor might have been smoking them right with her.
Yeah.
Back in those days. But it's just well, and let's quick touch on that just from a tobacco standpoint because a lot of people aren't aware of this. I know you are now, but back in the early 90s when the warning labels went on the cigarettes and suddenly we went from 50-60% of the population smoking down to about 15% of the population. RJ Reynolds, Philip Morris, they all understood the handwriting that was on the wall. The
Yeah.
glory days were over. And but they were sitting on some of the biggest fortunes of cash in the world, and they all became the largest owners. They bought Nabisco, Kraft, and every
Right.
processed food company. And it's not that there's nicotine. Well, there is nicotine in cigarettes, but it's not the nicotine that's actually addictive. It's the 50 other chemicals that they've added to the product that's addictive. And that's what their engineers went to go work with at Nabisco, at General Mills, at all these places that they bought over the next 30 years. Here's how we make this hyper palatable food addictive, and there's no nutrient value in it. Even if it says fortified, 95% of what is fortified is not even, it's such low grade things that they can just put on the box, but it's not absorbable by the
Right.
body.
Right.
And so you've got no nutrition. You just got blood sugar spikes and insulin spikes, creating the hangry that now so many people live with.
Yes.
And, I remember back, we used to go on some family vacations, and my wife likes the old Civil War stuff and plantations, and we'd go on these plantation tours down in Charleston and other southern states. And you go on these tours, and they show you how, well, they didn't have kitchens and refrigerators. They had a root cellar. The cooking was done outside over big open pots. They made one meal a day. If there were
Yeah.
leftovers, there might be dinner, but there wasn't breakfast. That's an industrial age type of a Kellogg's invention that came around 1900 and after. And all of that, even both Kellogg's and Post, are right out of the Seventh-day Adventist Church as a way to get people off of animal-based protein things. Most people don't realize what role the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and they're the second largest teaching institution in the world after the Catholic Church.
Yes.
And they own most of the soy production around the world because they think soy should be a better form of protein for you, or it's a non-animal based. And they've got heavy duty religious convictions. And so God bless you if you want to go, just like if somebody's Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever you want to be, Hindu, go knock yourself out. Just like what you're eating's not my concern, what you're preaching is not my concern either. But this is where a lot of because they sought to be in these institutions like, so the person who was the first known Harvard professor to be kind of bribed by the sugar industry wound up also being the head of the USDA's food pyramid situation. And he came out of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And this is what they aspire, because they don't believe Jesus is going to come back until we all stop eating meat. That's their religious belief from Ellen G. White, the prophet of that religion.
The one who had the vision. Yeah.
So, but I never realized that cornflakes and peanut butter came out of John Harvey Kellogg, one of the major benefactors of Northwestern University and the Kellogg's Business School. But no, it's really fascinating what all of a sudden things I never used to think I could think about, like regenerative agriculture, and understanding the history of, well, when did we start doing all of these different things, or what changed? And before we had all of these chronic conditions that never existed in humanity, all of the cancer, all of the type 2 diabetes, all of the heart disease, these are all new modern inventions that came with our modern diets and lifestyles. There's other things we need to clean up that have ramped up in the last 30, 40 years, more the cell phone, the Wi-Fi, and these kinds of things, and the blue light in our LED bulbs should be all swapped out.
And how young people are getting Alzheimer's now, and how most people, I certainly didn't know that Alzheimer's is diabetes 3, type 2 diabetes, type 3 diabetes, sorry. And I mean, and back to sort of to circle back to what Dr. Tro was talking about with Element, it's like, just tell us what's in there, right? Tell us what it's made of, so we can, as an adult, make a decision for what we want to put in our body. And if you look at the pyramid, the standard American diet, by the time you get to the meat portion, which is what we need more of, protein, how can you eat that? Look at all that crap that is on top of that. It's sugar, and it just makes me so sad that that they don't know the difference until they're ready to start digging into the stuff. And even when you dig into it, where do you go if you don't know where to go? I sympathize with it so much. And I just hope that we have more rallies for the metabolic revolution. I hope we can reach more people, at least get curious with what you're eating. Don't just mindlessly stuff the Ruffles in your face while you're dipping it in, all the things that's what we do. That's how we go through life, mindlessly eating. I know that's what I did. And no one's to blame for doing that, because it's just how we've been conditioned, like you said. And I just I don't think it's right that they can hide additives and things that are in our food and call it food. I just don't think that's right.
Most of the other westernized countries don't allow it. Most of what is sold in our stores could not be sold in Canada or in Europe because they are serious about chemicals
Yeah.
and additives and all of the things that the dyes and everything else that is destroying us.
Yeah.
We seem to not have a problem, but I think we have the most captured regulatory agencies in the whole world, and that's just
Yeah.
that's a fact of life. And that's also why over especially the last 4 or 5 years now, we just went through a major thing in the world, which has taken our trust in healthcare from about 70, 80% down to
Yeah.
about 20% of the world right now having faith in science. And I don't have a problem with science, but I also realize right now we're at about 85% replication failure on science. The benchmark of science is one, you've got to be able to question it. If you can't question it, it's not science, it's
Agreed.
propaganda. Number two,
Yes.
you have to create a well-designed study, and then somebody else has to replicate it. Because if it's not replicated, it's not anything that we should even be considering yet.
Yeah. I totally agree. And you know what? I don't need a doctor. You don't need a doctor to tell you that you should be eating the oatmeal or whatever they want to tell you to eat, the standard American diet. We don't need doctors to tell us how to eat, especially when we know how we feel. So we got to stop listening to the noise and start listening to our bodies and being in tune with what is making me feel like I have energy, like I want to get up in the morning, all the things that we've talked about, in the last 45 minutes or so. You have to stop listening to what you're being told, and listen to how you feel. That's just very hard to do. I would say that's very hard to do until you know to do it and how to do it.
My co-host on my other podcast, the Metabochondriacs, that I do with cardiologist Dr. Ryan Cooley, one of the big things he's said multiple times, and on other podcasts that he's on as well, beyond our own, but he goes, we have to rely less on the randomized controlled trials because those are population type things, but
Yeah.
we have to look at, and as doctors, they've kind of been you could say they've been trained not to look at the clinical reality that's happening in front of them with the patient. And when a patient does something, there are doctors like Dr. Westman, who he had patients who read the Atkins book and improved every single thing that they had going on in them. And he was a young out of med school doctor practicing, and he goes, I got to figure this out. And he wound up going and spending a month in New York at Dr. Atkins' office to figure out what is going on with all of this. But most doctors are going to say, well, that's anecdotal. That's one person. That's meaningless, or something that happened in their world. They walked under some magical street light that cured them of all of these conditions. It couldn't possibly have to do, because we weren't taught anything about food in med school. So it couldn't possibly have anything to do about that. And, so do we want to go
think about, I don't know if you have pets or anything, but I don't know if you have pets, but so if you take your dog or your cat or something to the vet, what's the first thing the vet asks? Well, what are you feeding them? Well, why isn't that the first thing you're asking me as a human? Right? Like it's so I don't know. We're just a little bit, we've gone off the rails, and like I hope that we can I know that these communities are growing, and I would also like to tell people you don't have to be a carnivore. You don't have to go crazy. You can have that birthday cake, the holidays. You can have that stuff. But really what you're trying to do is you're trying to become metabolically healthy. And I didn't know what that meant until I started this journey. And even if you are thin and not overweight, it's very possible, if you have some conditions, like the dry eyes or the, joint pain, that you're broken. You're broken. And it's okay. It's okay. You can fix yourself though. and so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try it. And it's for everybody. Real food is for everybody.
Well, it's
I
how
don't know.
everybody used to eat. Before
Yeah.
1900, this was just called eating.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
eat one meal a day. We ate, animals that came from the local farms and
Yeah.
vegetables in season that grew
Right.
locally. And then we had root
Yeah.
cellars where we would make sauerkraut and pickled beans and all the different things that our great grandparents all grew up on in sauerkraut so they could have some veg in the winters.
Right.
But everybody naturally for thousands of years in climate areas was much more carnivore-ish,
Right.
ketovore-ish in the wintertime. And then when the seasons came around and we started eating like bears, getting ready for hibernation so they
Yes.
could put on all the weight to get through the winter. Well, yes, we're genetically modified, or we're genetically designed also to put on weight in case the hunt doesn't happen well and there isn't other things to eat. But we just never have that winter come around anymore because we have kiwis 24/7, 365 at the 7-Eleven down the street available
That's
to
right.
us.
That's
So
right. We sure
we
do.
just, we never, we don't have to eat like the winter and the starvation is going to come because it's just not the reality. But our
And we
genetics
have roofs
believe that
over
it
our
will.
heads. Yeah, we have roofs and we have air conditioning and heating and all of those things that we don't have to, we live a pretty high life. And I just we've talked about this, and it is crazy that you have to convince people to eat real food. It's
Oh, let me ask you
it's
one more quick question.
yeah,
So I've heard you say that you probably have now moved from a 3 to a 2 and sometimes a 1 meal a day kind
yeah.
of a thing.
Mhm.
And I bet you're pretty darn good at making those things pretty quick and efficiently and everything. Um, what do you do with all the extra time you have in your day now?
Uh, Gosh, I go for more walks, and I love being out in the sun. If I feel like the sun's coming through right here. I feel like if I'm a little, tired feeling like, oh God, I run out in the backyard and I walk around barefoot, and I just look at the sun, and I find myself thanking, um, I whoever you want to thank, it's your
Yeah.
personal choice. But I feel like I'm thankful for all my blessings. I see them now. I didn't see them a few years ago. I think I tried, but they were just blessings, But now I really try to go out and be present, with the sun, with my bare feet on the ground. I those are things I'm still working on. I know that there's some, different breathing techniques and some other things that can go along with this, and I'm still learning. And I'm also still learning about what makes me feel good for food. I I've cut out dairy. I never thought I could cut out dairy. Guys, that's harder than sugar. That is whoosh. I miss my cheese. But guess what? Dairy seems to make me want to snack. It makes me I feel a little edgy after I eat dairy. I'd never realized that. There's some things that I realized that dairy doesn't give me the optimization that I'm looking for. So I still eat twice a day, sometimes one time a day. Um, I have a pretty healthy appetite for my little size. So I sometimes I'm like, is that all you're going to eat? I could eat that. And unlike you, I don't love being in the kitchen. So this is like a dream come true where we just throw a steak on the barbecue at night now,
Well, I grew up appreciating the kitchen, and yes, I was a geeky kid who, in summers and when I was homesick, I would watch Julia Childs and cooking
Oh,
shows and stuff. And so, but it's not like I'm the galloping gourmet or anything like this.
yeah,
But I enjoy making things. I've always been capable of making things.
yeah,
But no, I mean, as we were talking before we started here, and I'm like, oh my God, one of my clients turned me on to my new favorite thing in the world, which is chuck roast thrown in
yeah,
my air fryer. So I buy 2-3 pound slabs of it at Costco and divide them into 1 pound pieces, freeze part of it, keep some of it in the fridge, drop it out of the baggie that it's in into the air fryer, 12 minutes at 400, another 6 minutes after you flip it over at 380. I wasn't in the kitchen at all. That and salt, and it's the juiciest, most delicious red meat I've ever. And I've been eating a lot of red meat over the last 6 years, but
Yeah.
pretty much all of my meals are centered around, meat, fish, eggs. I hardly ever do chicken just because I understand how
Yeah.
chickens are raised, and unless you know where your chicken's coming from, pasture, a local farm type of situation, but pasture raised eggs,
Yeah.
and free range and cage free. These don't mean what you think they mean. People
Right.
become educated with all of this, but no. So I mean, yeah, I don't mind. Eating, but where you said, "Oh, you like being in the kitchen," I go, because the other thing is that when I noticed that I have this whole new satiety thing, and once you become what again is called fat adapted, like all
Right.
of our ancestors were, which is why I can bust off, and I haven't gone past like 4.5 days of a fast. I've done like 4 or 5 different 100+ hour fasts, but not to the whole fifth full day. And the only reason I don't is because eating and making food breaks up the day a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
and by the time you're going through 4 whole days and you're starting your fifth day, it's just kind of like, well, I do like food, and I'd always have to make sure I whittled everything out of, the fridge and all, so that nothing's going to go bad over these 4 days. So I kind of
Yeah. I
would
know, huh?
I would plan for it. But no, I mean, I enjoy food. I think I eat like, a king or royalty or whatever, because what I eat is just incredibly delicious. I reversed heart disease. I reversed metabolic syndrome. I reversed crippling arthritis. I reversed tinnitus and BPH. And where you had dry eye, I used to every couple of weeks just get where my eyes would constantly water. And that hasn't happened for
Yes.
6 years. So I mean, all and so many other little things. I used to wake up.
Yes.
Now we had a bunch of dogs, and
Yeah.
but even when we had the dogs, and I'd have 4 sleeping in the bed with me for 30 years, when it was 1 or 2 dogs, I'd have to get up, and the only thing I could, because I'm allergic to everything in the world. At least I used to be. I'd have to
Right.
go blow my nose. I'd have to go stand over the toilet where the Kleenex box was, blow my nose before taking a shower or doing anything else. And even when this happened for 3 years with my dogs have passed. But and I miss them dearly because they were incredible. But I didn't have to go up, wake up and blow my nose. I was just clean. I was clear.
Yeah.
So and I was still allergic to the dogs. I was immune to my dogs. But anyhow,
Right.
but I didn't have all of these things have and more that I can't even remember because it's been so
Yes.
long.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, thank you for bringing that up. I used to always carry a tissue with me so I could, because my eyes would always water. Like you said, I forgot about that until you mentioned it. And my great grandma used to do it. My grandma, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, it must just be genetic. No, it's not. It's what
It's
you're
just a
eating.
response from what's in the plants is what it
Yeah.
is.
Or that, yeah, I don't know what caused it, but whatever it is, I got rid of it and I don't have those issues anymore. So it's amazing. And like I said, I have so much passion about it, and I'm really honored to work with you and everyone else, on the revolution. I want to make a difference because I want people to become as curious about their food as I did. And I want them to feel as good as I do.
Absolutely.
I've started swimming the last 2 weeks. I'm doing like 40 laps in 35 minutes. What? Like, and I'm not like wanting to drown. I'm not so
Didn't
tired I
somebody
want to
tell
drown.
you you're a grandma?
Yeah, I know. You are gonna be on the couch all the time because you're over 50. No, I don't want to be that way. So yeah, there's just a lot. There's just so many blessings in it that until you try it for yourself, I don't know that you can really understand it. And that's what I want for others. And so that's why I'm honored to work with all of you. I'm honored to be here to talk about it, and I hope that we can make a difference. I really do.
Well, I know we are, and we're going to chip away at it, and it's going to be a grassroots thing. So, some of us have some success with penetrating doctors, and much of my
Yeah,
website is kind of geared towards breaking doctors' brains, like I broke Dr. Ryan Cooley's brains and a couple
yeah,
others out there. And that's the most rewarding thing in the world, because they're not going to get it from there up high from the medical systems or from
yeah.
pharma. Nobody's going to bring this because it upsets everybody's apple carts.
Right.
But we can build it from the ground floor up, just like we found it when the
Yeah,
time was right, or the message was there, or it was the fifth time that we didn't pay attention to it the other four times.
yeah.
And now, we don't have to chase people and
No,
all
you're
of us.
right.
But when we first get into this, just like when anybody has an epiphany or a religious experience and they want to convert everybody else, we can fall prey to much of this, because what you just said, I want to share how I feel with the world. My friends should not be feeling the shit they're feeling right now. My family members should not be feeling the shit. They should not be exposing themselves to the cancer, the heart disease, everything else, the strokes, the chronic kidney disease and everything. And just even I sleep through the night. I don't get up and go to the bathroom anymore. On top of I don't sunburn.
Who
I mean,
knew?
all the things you've talked about. I
Yeah.
mean, oh my God. 50 years old, I was getting the tinnitus in the ears, and now for the last 5, 6 years, it's just completely gone. Gone. I've got an older
I
brother.
had vertigo. Vertigo, the kind that like literally I'd have to grab onto the desk and I'm thinking, I think I'm going to go down. That is no longer an issue.
How
What?
long
I
did you
didn't even
suffer from that?
for years. For years, I would just get like really dizzy and I'd be like, oh my God, like I have to sit down on the plane. I would sometimes be like, uh-oh, hold on. I never, it didn't go that far, but there were times where everything would go whoosh. And, and guess what? I forgot that that was even a thing. And because I don't have that anymore, it's just amazing. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. Well, I bet you never thought you would have soaked up an hour and 7 minutes of conversation on
oh
all
my
of
gosh,
this.
I did not. And this is my first time ever talking to someone about my experience. And so, thank you for being that person. I love it so much.
As you're aware, I'm on a mission to try to get 500 interviews in under the next 2 years, kind of starting from August. So in less than 2 years, and you're going to be between me or mine and the shared host with Dr. Ryan Cooley. I think you're 2021, 22, somewhere in that area at this point in time. So I got to get busy. And so anybody else listening to all of this, if this inspires you, feel free to
Yes.
reach out to Natalie. Are there places on social media that people could find you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, I am on all of the socials. No, I don't know what they're called. I'm on Facebook. It's Natalie Monroe Shamp, but Natalie Shamp. I'm also on X. I'm under norcalnat, NORCALNAT. That's my Instagram, my X, and you can even email me if you think you have a question. I'm super happy to talk about anything that you have questions on. I'm not a medical professional, but we can
None
talk
of us,
about,
neither of us are.
yeah, we can talk about the way I got here and some of the tips and tools that I used or who I listened to get here also is always helpful. But yeah, norcalnat@gmail.com. I'm
I'll
super
put
happy
all
to reach
those
out.
in the details underneath the video
Yeah.
here, so
Well,
you'll be
thank
able
you.
to reach out to Natalie. So you'll hang on with me for a minute once we quit recording, and I'll
I
grab all
will.
that stuff. And so everybody, check out the metabolicrevolution.org. See why we're so excited about, and very shortly we'll have out within the next week-ish. We had 14 leading metabolic health professionals, doctors, psychiatrists, researchers from around the world who came to be a part of this because they realized how important this was. We had somebody fly in from the UK. We had
Love it.
Canadian. I mean, it was incredible. We had people from Israel come in, and just to be part of that Washington, D.C. rally. So all of those presentations are going to be available. We're going to build a YouTube channel and bring all them back for longer extended versions. But there's a reason why all of us are I paid $1,000 to go leave town and not make money and do different things and be part of all of this, is because I understand how important this is to getting the awareness out there. So check out metabolicrevolution.org. Thanks for joining us. Natalie, thank you so much for coming on the channel, sharing your story. People, you can find her stuff in the details, and we will talk again soon. Hang with me for a minute.
Thank you, Brett.